Okay, can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Lori, Judy, Robin, Tina, Crime Think Intuitions. Hello to you all. Thank you very much for showing up to the Hard Truth. All right, that's awesome. We're going to go ahead and get started in case you all have plans for after the live. I'm going to get started with my first point. All right. All right. Can you see the photo on the screen? This is the first part of, hold on, let me make sure I have the right. All right. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Hi, Tanita. Hi, Cajun Chick. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. All right. Now, the biggest conversation that's going on right now is what has Bethany told investigators at the start of the investigation. And to be honest with you, I can show you what she said. Hey, beautiful disaster. Hey, Jabez. Okay, a little louder. Let me turn it up. Okay, how about that? My audio is up a little bit more. I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Okay, I turned everything up a little bit. All right, here is the kicker. I'm going to show you. Oh, my words are echoing. Okay, what about now then? All right. Now, I'm going to show you what Bethany said to the prosecutors. Hi, Ray Ann. Hi, Susie Q. Hi, Kelly. Much love to you all. We're going to get started. Now, this is what Bethany said to investigators early on. Okay, listen to Mark Furman. This was recorded, this was published on November the 18th. That's 5 days after the murders. Just listen.
For some reason, bypassed rooms where young survivors were sleeping.
Okay,
their story was they heard partying, heard noise, but they just, as usual, said, there was partying going on. They locked the door.
Another mystery.
Okay, first of all, how does he know? Why is he in the investigation? I'm just, he said both of them. He's talking about hand dealings, okay? And so that both of them said they heard partying.
Survivors were sleeping.
Their story was they heard partying, they heard noise, but they just, as usual, said, there was partying going on. They locked the door.
Another mystery.
and they locked the door. Isn't that something?
There was partying going on. They locked the door.
Another mystery.
And they locked the door. Isn't that something? Okay, listen to Mark. Play it again so you can hear. Furman. This was recorded. This was published on November the 18th. That's after the murders. Just listen.
For some reason, bypassed the rooms where the two young survivors were sleeping.
Their story was is they heard noise, but they just, as usual, said, there was partying going on. They locked the door.
Another mystery.
Okay. First of all, okay, he said that both of the girls said that they heard partying and locked the door. Both of them. Okay, let me take this off. I got an error sign. All right. He said both locked their door. They said one door. All right. So how is it that he knew 5 days after the murders what Dylan and Bethany said to investigators? All right. That's ridiculous. All right. They both heard partying. Let me put that in the chat. Both heard partying. That's what Mark Furman said. All right. So we don't have to wonder what Bethany said that the defense is so excited about hearing. We know exactly what was said. Mark Furman just told us both heard partying and locked their door. So they're placing themselves in the house while this is going on. And both of them claim that once they heard whatever, they locked their doors. That's just ridiculous, really. That's just not it. I don't think either one of them were in the house. I think they're going along with what the police told them to say. I think they probably gave 2 or 3 different stories. And once law enforcement decided, that's what I said, Cajun Chick. That's exactly what I said. Because Mark Furman said they locked the door. All right? They locked the door. Not they locked their doors. It's like they were in the same room. That's what I said, Cajun Chick. That's exactly what I said. All right? I'm going to put it up there one more time, and then I'm going to move on in case somebody's coming in late or whatever. Okay, and listen put the link to Mark video. I believe it's Fox This News was recorded. Edition. This was published on I'm gonna put that November the 18th. That's 5. Okay, I'm gonna put it in listen there. To Merman. This was recorded. This was published on November the 18th. That's after the murders. Just listen.
For some reason, bypassed the rooms where the two young survivors were sleeping.
Their story was is they heard partying, they heard noise, but they just, as usual, said, there was partying going on. They locked the door.
Another mystery.
Okay, first of all, how does he know? Now that is ridiculous. Total contradiction to what Dylan said, and also admits that Dylan was not asleep. Dylan was not asleep. Bethany was not asleep. Okay? According to news reports, all the way into December, everybody was, according to the PCA, everybody was in their own room and asleep, or at least in their room by what, 3 o'clock, 2 or 3 o'clock? And so now he's saying that it sounds like he said Dylan and Bethany were in the same room. They heard the noise and they shut the door. They locked the door. It doesn't say, he didn't say anything about Dylan yelling out for them to keep the noise down. I mean, this is ridiculous, really. It's just bold-faced lies. Now, here's something else we need to look at. Hold on just a minute. Listen to the coroner when Ashley Banfield asked her if they were where they were found. Listen.
And there was no sexual assault.
Hold on just a second. Listen to the coroner. I'm gonna start it over. Listen to the coroner when Ashley Banfield asked her if they were where they were found. Listen.
And there was no sexual assault. County Coroner Kathy Mabbutt is describing the murders as personal.
Were they found in beds?
Yes, there were multiple stab wounds. The fatal ones were to the.
She asked her if they were found in bed, and the coroner said yes. She said the kids were found in the bed. Let me put that in the chat. All right, we got some more people joining us. Hey, Cozy Mom, Shannon, Save Me From Myself, Nikki Watson. Hello to everybody. Thank you for joining the live. And we're on the part about the coroner now. The coroner said that the victims were found in bed. The PCA wants us to believe that Xana was getting food. Xana was on her phone on TikTok. Kaylee was upstairs playing with her dog. The coroner said the victims were found in bed. All right? And the coroner arrived at 5:30. 5:30. And she said when she got there, the victims were found in bed with multiple stab wounds.
The chest area or the upper body area.
Listen to the coroner when Ashley Banfield asked her if they were where they were found. Listen.
And there was no sexual assault. County Coroner Kathy Mabbutt is describing the murders as personal.
Were they found in beds?
Yes, there were.
Yes, she's talking about yes, like she didn't want to answer. Hey, One Made Nut, thank you. Thank you. She said the victims were found in bed. All right, so if Xana and Ethan were found in bed, then how was Xana getting food and on her phone and then was found in bed? And then they said Xana fought back. So how did she end up in her bed? They said Kaylee fought back. And the coroner saying she was found in the bed with Maddie. How? Cozy Mom, you called it. She was like, yes. That's not a hard question. You visited a home, you went into two different rooms with two people in each room, and she asked you, were they in bed? And she acted like she was struggling with this answer. I mean, one more time, God. I'm not sure who's just got here or what. Listen to the coroner when Ashley Banfield asked her if they were where they were found. Listen.
And there was no sexual assault. County Coroner Kathy Mabbutt is describing the murders as personal.
Were they found in beds?
Yes, there were.
I mean, Ashley asked her straight up, and it seems like she really didn't want to answer the question, or she's lying. Basically, it just seemed like something's off. But if we have to believe the PCA or the coroner, Don't we have to believe the coroner? Some people said, um, Ethan was found in the doorway with his throat slashed, and then Xana was in the room on the floor. Yeah, the coroner does have another job. I believe she's a lawyer defending a guy in a knife stabbing case. The coroner is. Yeah, I don't believe she was on her phone, Cajun chick. I just don't. I don't believe she was on her phone. I don't believe she ordered a DoorDash. I think all of this was set up, and it's just like everybody's stories are contradicting each other. Because Mark Furman really messed it up for the prosecution. He had no business getting on national TV talking about what the girl said. But he did. Hi, Audrey Cakes. Hi, Annie Potts. All right. He said, both girls said they heard partying and locked the door. Mark Furman said he talked to several people, and he did. He was at the crime scene, if I'm not mistaken. And so he had some inside information. All right. Now let's talk about Xana, because when I say I don't believe the DoorDash and the TikTok, I have to ask the question, why did they choose Xana to say this is who ordered the DoorDash? Okay? Why did they choose Xana? I'm going to put that in the chat before I put my evidence up. All right, I put it in the chat. Why did they choose Xana? They could have said the DoorDash was for Maddie. They could have said it was for Kaylee. Huh? All right, let me give you my theory. First of all, we saw Xana. We saw Maddie and Kaylee at the grub truck. So it doesn't make sense that they ordered the DoorDash. They kind of had to say it was Xana and Ethan because Kaylee and Maddie are on film getting food from the grub truck. All right? Now, what about this? All right, I'm going to read this out and give you my theory on it because I certainly have one. All right, first of all, you remember that Xana's father came and fixed the locks on her bedroom door the week before this happened. All right? So, what I'm saying is it seems like the killers had inside information. They knew where everybody was in the house. They knew what time to come. All right? They knew how to get up out of there. All right? They had inside information. So I'm thinking one reason why they chose Xana to say she got a DoorDash, number one, Maddie and Kaylee were at the grub truck. They couldn't say they were ordering Jack in the Box. They were just at a food stop. All right? Second of all, they chose Xana because if Xana's father had just fixed the locks, then maybe they felt they had to lure Xana and Ethan out of the room because she had new locks on her bedroom door. And so when they came in the house, they wanted to make sure they could get Ethan and Xana to open the door if their bedroom door was closed and it was locked. So the DoorDash going to Xana made sense because plus Xana had a man in the room with her. Okay, so that could have taken a little extra work depending on how many people came in the house. And so that DoorDash was a good way to make sure they could get in Xana Ethan's room, that the door would just be open. And number two, Ethan wouldn't have a chance to grab a weapon. He could have had a gun or a knife in the room. He wouldn't have had a chance to grab anything. So I think this DoorDash was not. I don't think it was arbitrary that the DoorDash has Xana's name on it, and why couldn't it have been Dylan or Bethany that ordered the DoorDash if it's fake? Why did it have to be Xana? What are your thoughts on that? Okay. Hi, Melly. No channel confirmed that a female DoorDasher picked up food from Jack in the Box. No one confirmed that. Let me put that in the text. No one. The only thing we have about that Jack in the Box is that somebody went to the restaurant and filmed themselves walking around the outside of the Jack in the Box restaurant saying that they talked to somebody. That's nothing has been confirmed. Nothing. Okay, if somebody has evidence that somebody recorded a conversation or interview with anybody from Jack in the Box, I'll be glad to review it and post it. But until we have that, I really don't entertain any of these videos hypothesizing who the DoorDash driver is, because I don't believe that there was an authentic DoorDash driver. I believe that the DoorDash bag served another purpose. Let me tell you what that was. Number one, the DoorDash bag would help the killers get in the house. That's just an easy way to get somebody to open the front door. It's also an easy way to get Xana and Ethan to open their bedroom door with the brand new lock on it. It's also a reason for the driver, the getaway driver, who's riding all over the neighborhood for 40, 50 minutes, to have the bag in the car in case they get pulled over. They can say, well, I'm door dashing. The bag serves a lot of different purposes. The cop in the field that stopped those guys that were drinking, he could have very well pulled the white car over and said, hey, why are you going back and forth? And so the driver's got the DoorDash bag with somebody's name on it in his car. He could say, hey, man, I'm delivering food. And then Annie Potts, you right on point. Another reason for the DoorDash, and probably the main reason, is to establish the timeline of 4 to 4:20 that at this time Xana was alive and received some food. And that just doesn't jive, because I believe at 3:29, 3:30, probably about 3:31 or 3:32 at the latest, whoever was in that white car was in the house. And they weren't in there for 30 minutes before and let Xana get food before everything went down. There was no reason to keep casing out the house if the killers weren't in there yet. There was no no real DoorDash driver. I believe the reason they chose Jack in the Box is because it's in Pullman. Okay, Jabez, do you have proof of a conversation between JLR and anybody from DoorDash? Has he published any evidence of a conversation with a DoorDash person or the Jack in the Box person? Does he have any recorded evidence? Because I've been waiting on that. I'm open-minded. A lot of people say there was a DoorDash driver. I'm open. I'm open. If any of these people claiming they talked to the driver or to somebody in the restaurant have any material evidence of it, I'm open. I'm not too proud. I'm not too proud to go back to the drawing board and say I was wrong. But if people are saying there was a driver, she was female, somebody confirmed it, and it hasn't been confirmed, I have to stay on the track I'm on. Okay, and I'm gonna just keep moving on from that because I can pick up my keys, go to the airport, and fly to Idaho right now and film myself walking around the outside of that restaurant and say the same thing. But does that mean that I talked to somebody? Absolutely not. And there's a gag order. Okay, let me put that in the text. And then let me ask you one more question about this DoorDash before I move on. All right? If you were a DoorDash driver and you found out the next day or a few hours later that you delivered food to somebody that was a part of a quadruple murder, okay? A quadruple murder. And you have proof that it wasn't you, okay? You just delivered the food. Wouldn't you sell your DoorDash information to a tabloid? Do you know what People or News Nation or TMZ would pay just for a screenshot of the DoorDasher's phone? Just for see evidence that that address and the timestamp was in the just a screenshot. Okay? Nobody in Jack in the Box would be able to speak to a YouTuber and give them information about the case if they're a part of the case. Okay? If there was a YouTube, and then the PCA, the Moscow police claim that the DoorDash driver came and cleared himself with Moscow police. They referred to it as a male. So as far as I'm concerned, all of it is lies. Okay? It wasn't a female or a male. They can't get that straight, and there's multiple accounts of it. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the view from Linda Lane. It does. I would have, listen, Amy D, I would have sold that DoorDash screenshot so fast, I would have told him, give me $20,000. I won't even sell it to somebody else. Or I would have sold that same screenshot to about 3 or 4 different tabloids in the same day. I wouldn't gag order, SAG order. We're talking about money. And if you drive DoorDash, you could use $20,000 or $30,000, probably more than that. All right? So there's no way that I believe somebody actually, that Xana actually ordered food that was to arrive around 4 o'clock. I've already proven that it's very unlikely that she could get food from that Jack in the Box. But those are other videos that I'm referring you to. If you would like to talk about it, you know, we'll go with that another time. But we spent a lot of time on that the last time we met up. Okay. Thank you, Save Me From Myself. Thank you, Pauline. Just Living. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. All right. Now, as far as the time of death, Annie, the police were called to the scene at 11:50 something. Okay. Payne and the other guy showed up at 4 p.m. The coroner showed up at 5:30 p.m. Now, by the time the police were called, the door was wide open. The front door was wide open. It was 28 degrees outside. And the smell of blood had to be permeating through that house after like the first hour. I could just imagine. Okay? This is before any law enforcement arrived. 28 degrees. Let me put that in the chat. I want to ask you all something. This is just a common sense question. This is just a common sense question. Guess what? I forgot my own question. I forgot my own question. Okay, here it is. Here it is. It came back to me. Thank you, Jesus. I have forgotten my own question. My question is, if you were in a house as a teenager, somebody 19, 20, 21 years old, all right? You're 21 years old, 20, you wake up in a house with 4 dead bodies that have been stabbed, almost mutilated, and blood bath in the house as per the police description. You woke up to that. Not only did you wake up to that, these people that were murdered were your friends. You just took a picture with them, a group picture out on the porch the day before. The day before. Now, if you had, and then one of them claims they saw somebody in a mask before they discovered the bodies. Now, if this was you at 21 years old, would you be in the state of mind? Wouldn't you be somewhere chain smoking a cigarette or a vape, even though you don't even smoke? Wouldn't you need a cigarette for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Wouldn't you be needing some medication? Wouldn't somebody have to be rubbing you on your back for about 2 weeks? Would you be posting on social media? Would you be in a tattoo shop? Huh? Let me show you something. Let me show you something. Hold on, let me find the picture. Hold on, just 1 minute. I didn't have this picture, but I think I need to bring it back up. All right. Let me take that off for a minute. We'll come back to Linda Lane. We'll come back to Linda Lane. We need to stop right here first. All right. Hold on just 1 second. Let me get it. Cult tattoo. Who said that? Amy D. All right, where's my screenshot? All right, here it is. Now, this just gives you an idea of what the inside of this house looked like. And you're going to tell me you were in the house when this went on. You were in the house. You heard some things. So if you told the police that you heard noises and locked your door, not only do you have the visual memory of blood and dead bodies, the smell of blood in your head, You got the sound of it going on in your head. And you mean to tell me a few days after all of this happened, you were at a tattoo parlor and you were posting on social media? I need something to smoke just looking at this picture from the outside. And the fact that it was that much blood that the house couldn't contain it. And you mean to tell me you heard what was going on. It was enough for you to lock your door. But you went a week later, you were fine. You were smiling on social media. The only way you could be at a tattoo parlor and smiling on social media after something this horrific. You were just in a horror house, a house of horrors. Only way you could have done that is if you were not there and you just telling stories about how you heard noises and whatever. You weren't there. You weren't there, neither one of you. Because your hands would be shaking. You would be a nervous wreck for God only knows how long at that age. If you were in a horror house like that. At my age, my hands would be shaking for a while just thinking about it. I would need a lot of counseling and a lot of prayer to get past seeing my colleagues in that situation. And just the thought that it could have been you. Even if you didn't care anything about Maddie, you didn't care about Kaylee, you didn't care one bit about Xana or Ethan. Just the fact that it was that close to you in your life is enough for your nerves to be knocked off a rocker, you and your parents. I'm just saying. The fact that you came that close to death yourself by some vicious stabbing, that's enough right there to send somebody to the crazy house or have them off their square for a long time. And Beautiful Disaster said, hard truth, did you ever see Maddie's last TikTok and when Dylan wrote on it? No, I haven't seen that. That's something we're going to have to, okay. Sleuthy Goosey made another excellent point. At the very least, not until the person was caught. Because until then, I'm trusting nobody. Exactly. They hadn't even named a suspect. This person could have been coming back for you because they think they saw you if you were really in the house. You didn't feel like you were in any danger. That was an excellent point. Sleuthy Goosey, that was awesome right there. That was awesome. And what did the TikTok say? Well, I saw a picture with a timestamp of 5:54 that Dylan supposedly uploaded on Visco, and it was this timestamp said November the 13th, 5:54. Let me put that in the chat. And then somebody else said she was posting as early as 3:30 or 3:45. So I'm just saying, I don't believe either one of them were in the house. I believe they said exactly what Mark Furman said. That they told the police they heard some partying and they locked their door. They didn't see a cotton picking thing. And I believe this statement from Dylan came later and they just left Bethany out. Bethany probably wasn't willing to corroborate Dylan's statement. That's why they left her out. Dylan was not willing to corroborate Dylan's statement of this masked intruder and hearing all of this stuff. And so they just went with Dylan. And the reason why Dylan had to do it is because her room is on the second floor. Well, from what I heard, beautiful, Maddie has been bullying more than just Dylan. I've heard that Maddie was bullying Hannah Clear. And Hannah Clear's birthday is November the 15th. Let me pull that up right quick. I think I should put her name in the chat too, just out of mad respect, you know. And she was related to one of these officers or whoever. All right, let's check this out right quick. I don't want to see that anymore. Okay, so let's talk about the bullying. Who brought up the bullying? 12:33 a.m. is the exact time stamp that Dylan posted the picture of her and Maddie. Everything makes no sense. If I'm the defense, I'm going after the timeline and make sure my client wasn't anywhere near the house when the crime occurred if I can. Right, and I got something to say about that too that I want to show you. But first, let's start by Hannah. What do you think about this? All right. This was a bit rough, I would say. Whoever my Cordial Stories is, I mean, if Maddie bullied Hannah, then Kaylee did too. Because wherever Maddie was, Kaylee was. And whatever Maddie was doing, Kaylee was doing. So, I mean, this is a possible motive. Because Hannah is related to somebody on the police force. Somebody, I forget which one. I think it might have been Gunderson. I think it might be Gunderson. All right, but I want to talk about some more facts. I want to get to this house purchase in Pennsylvania, and I also need to get to a couple more things. So let's move on. That's a talking point for maybe the community tab. All right, I want to bring this up. Hold on, let me find it. This is about the PCA, where it says that Brian Kohlberger's car was located. Okay, Cozy Mom said, I do have to jump in and say Hannah's family has said numerous times it wasn't because of Maddie and that it was over-the-counter sleep meds, not illegal drugs. Okay, well, thank you for clearing that up. I hope that's true. All right, good, good. I'll take that because I don't have any evidence that Maddie bullied Hannah Clear. That's just a rumor. I don't have one drop of evidence that that happened. All right, let me show you. Let me find. Okay, here it is. This is regarding the WSU in the affidavit saying that they found Brian Kohlberger's car on November the 25th. All right, listen. An article in Fox News, Idaho murders. Police should have released Hyundai information immediately, former Detective Ted Williams said. Moscow police are asking the public for information. Fox News contributor and retired D.C. homicide Detective Ted Williams said Idaho police should have released information about a white sedan spotted near the scene of the 13th near the University of Idaho campus immediately rather than 3 weeks after the fact. I'm not being critical of law enforcement. What I'm saying is you must bring the public along to assist you in an investigation of this nature, Williams told Fox News Digital. And when you have knowledge of a white car that you can't identify, you don't wait 2 to 3 weeks to put that information out to the public. You get the public engaged right away. All right. It says Fox News Digital learned last week, however, that Moscow detectives reached out to landlord Kane Francis November 14th surveillance footage recorded from his 6-unit rental building on Linda Lane, which is 0.3 miles from the murder scene, showing a light-colored car driving around at the time of the murders. The mere fact that within 24 hours of the murder of these 4 college students, they were able to identify that there was a white or light-colored car in the vicinity that they needed to try to identify. You do not wait 3 weeks. You immediately put that information out to the public. Every nugget of information that is gathered by law enforcement is not going to pay off when it comes to evidence of a car that was in the neighborhood. Perhaps you must immediately act on the information. It is unclear exactly when police learned of a white sedan driving near the crime scene during the time of the murders. Moscow police did not immediately respond to an inquiry from Fox News Digital. And here's what I would say. Williams noted that in homicide cases, authorities typically have a 48-hour window to try and process evidence that will bring the killer to justice. The longer investigators wait to get assistance from the public, the more difficult their investigation will become. According to the PCA, after reviewing the numerous observations of suspect vehicle 1, the forensic examiner initially believed that the suspect vehicle 1 was a 2011-2013 Hyundai Elantra. Upon further review, he indicated it could also be a 2011-2016 Hyundai Elantra. All right, this is very important because at what point did that? First of all, they put this at the beginning of the PCA as sort of like a disclaimer because of what they knew they were going to say later on in the PCA. So initially, they were looking for a 2011, and upon further review. So when exactly was this further review? Okay, I'll tell you when it was, or I'll tell you when it wasn't. Okay? This press release is dated December the 7th, 2022, and it says that Moscow police are asking for the community's help. All right, and hold on, let me go back. All right, detectives are interested in speaking with the occupants of a white 2011-2013 Hyundai Elantra. And also, you'll notice that they kept saying occupants in the news reports as if they could see that there was more than one person in the car. That's just speculation. But as late as December the 7th, they were still asking for a 2011-2013 Hyundai Elantra. Okay, now look at this. On November 25th, 2022, Moscow Police Department asked area law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for white Hyundai Elantras in the area. This is not true. Okay? On November the 25th, the police department was still looking for, they had already established that they were looking for a 2011 to a 2013 Hyundai Elantra. So if they contacted WSU police to look for a white Hyundai Elantra, they would have said 2011 to 2013. As you can see in this statement, there's no date range for the white Hyundai Elantra because they know there's a discrepancy there. They did not ask WSU police to look for every single Hyundai Elantra in the area when they had a date range of 2011 to 2013. If they asked them at all, which is questionable, they would have asked them to look for 2000 to 2013 on November the 25th. And so here it says on the 29th, police officer Tiango queried white Elantras registered at WSU. They would have queried 2011 to 13 white Elantras, or they would have been all there all day looking at every single white Elantra in the area. Okay, if they did this at all, if this happened at all, which I'm doubting that it did, okay, they probably just had to come up with a reason how they came up with Brian Koberger in the first place. Okay, but this is not it. Because when he queried white Elantras, again, it doesn't say any dates, 2011 or 2016. It just says white Elantras. But we know on the 25th and the 29th, they were looking for 2011 and 2013 through 13. That Brian Kohlberger's car wouldn't have came up in the search. All right, the query would not have produced Brian Kohlberger's name because his car was a 2015. They were looking for 2011 through 13. So this is a lie. All right, the vehicle was registered to Brian Kohlberger. This is another lie because there's no way to ask Washington State to look for every single white Elantra in the area. Okay? You know how many white Elantras there are? Probably, so that means you're looking for 1998 Elantra to a 2022 Elantra. When you claim that the forensic examiner told you the car was a 211 through 213, and you didn't change that until in December. All right, so you had a date range for the car. You didn't put it in the PCA for this part of the PCA right here. But what if it was true, it would read, be on the lookout for a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. That's what it would say if it were true. But that's okay. I have two more things I need to talk about, and so we can get into this a little bit more later. Okay, I want to talk about Pennsylvania. All right, I need to talk about Pennsylvania because there's been a lot of speculation about my last video. I just was astounded, absolutely astounded, to find out that somebody bought the house right across the street from the Kohlbergers the day after the murders. And my first thought was, well, maybe they think the Kohlbergers will lose their house and they could buy it, for a cheap price. And then somebody suggested, well, they said they got the DNA out of the neighbor's garbage. Well, what in the world? Is this the neighbor's garbage that they got it out of? Because if anybody in this house testifies, and they say that if in the documents, if it says that he put it in the trash at 114 Lamston Drive, we know what time it is. We know because what is somebody associated with the Gunderson and Payne doing on the Kohlberger Street? If this is the Susan Gunderson Payne associated, that I think it's just and then to try look at the date that the house look at the date that the house was sold. They tried to sell it the day after, the day before. It was the exact day before the subpoena to Bethany. The signature on Bethany's subpoena is March the 21st. March the 22nd. And this house was sold, put back on the market March the 21st. Also, I believe we got the Brady Giglio information in March. So it's like all this happened when all the bad news for the prosecution came out. All of a sudden, the house went back up for sale at a loss of $4,900. So where did they get the DNA from? 114 Lamson Drive? If they did that, I'm going to call and say, listen, Brian Kohlberger, drop everybody. I'll be your lawyer. I can get you out of this in about 10 minutes. Because they said that he put his trash in the neighbor's garbage. And then they said that they got the DNA from that trash. So this is right across the street. So whose trash did he put it in so far? Yes, Tina Velez. Gunderson is the Giglio officer for messing around with information. So whoever, the house being sold seems to me is reaction to inside information. How would they know the day before Bethany's subpoena to put the house up for sale? I'm just saying. How did they know? How did they know it's inside information? The house went up for sale the day before Bethany's subpoena was signed. The day before. Now, let's talk about the DNA right quick. And I don't want to keep using up time putting stuff on the screen because I still have one more point that I need to talk about. But think about this. If the house was purchased on November the 14th, they knew the Kohlbergers. Somebody knew the Kohlbergers on November the 13th, November the 10th. They knew the Kohlbergers. Let me put it in the chat. Okay, well, that's scary that there was somebody related to the people back in Moscow right across the street. The poor Kohlbergers didn't stand a chance. I'm just saying the family. I'm not saying, because let me get something straight. The evidence that I have found doesn't necessarily exonerate Brian Kohlberger. It just says that what we're being told by the prosecution and by the police is a lot of it is not true. I mean, it's perfectly possible that Brian was the driver and that he dropped some people off. That's perfectly possible. And I'm going to talk about that next. But they had to know the Kohlbergers. Bethany's subpoena, Ray AMP said Bethany's subpoena what? Her subpoena was signed March the 22nd. The house was put up for sale March the 21st. That's inside information. Yeah, they could have got Kohlberger's garbage a week before him and his father even got home. Yeah, Christine, that's what I said. They knew the Kohlbergers from day one. And this involves money in some type of way. You don't just go buy a house like that and then turn around and try to sell it a few months later. There's some money involved here. Yeah, they had Brian in mind from day one, beautiful. Right. And then they told this lie in the PCA that they saw that he was associated with the phone 8458. They didn't know Brian's phone movement until after December 23rd, because the first AT&T search warrant they issued back in November, it was just for GPS coordinates. Matter of fact, I approve it. Hold on just 1 second. They didn't have his, when he was in Pennsylvania, they did not have his phone pings until, they didn't have his phone pings until after December the 23rd. Look at this. All the while they tracing him in Indiana and all this, they didn't have his phone pings. They didn't have his DNA and they didn't have his phone pings. They didn't have proof of his DNA legally, put it that way. I don't know what they got on the down low. But if they sent it to the lab the first time and there was nothing on it, they didn't have his DNA when he arrived in PA with his dad. This is the search warrant for AT&T for November the 17th. This only asked for GPS coordinates. They had no idea where his phone was pinging. This asked for GPS coordinates, not phone records for anybody, for a half-a-mile radius around the house. They didn't have Brian's phone records from AT&T until December the 23rd. And they just told us that Brian's DNA was not in the trash. So let's go back to this. Let's go back to Pennsylvania. They told us it was his dad's DNA. So you mean to tell me Mr. Kohlberger's DNA was in the trash across the street? But not Brian's? Let me tell you what happened here. And let me tell you why Enid Harsh is not a suspect while we on the subject. Let me tell you why Enid is not a suspect. Let me put that in the chat. All right. Bloom told us that the first time they sent the sheaf to the Idaho State Lab, they didn't find anything. And so the next step, when they compare DNA to criminals in the database. So once it came back with no DNA and no match, they figured they had to have somebody that doesn't have a criminal background. That's why Enid Harsh is not a suspect, because he would have been a hit in the database. If his DNA was on something, it would have been a hit, because Enid Harsh been to prison more than once. So he wouldn't have been a suspect. And let me show you, oh my gosh, I got so much information. I'm sorry to be jumping around back and forth, but let me show you two more things, and then I'm going to stop hogging up all the time. But I got to show you these. This is, I bet you haven't seen it. Hold on just 1 second. I bet. Now, and this is reported by Idaho. This is reported by Idaho. Now, let me see who reported this. Nobody. I love you too, Josie. Sunny days. I got something for you. I got something for you right here. How about this for a Thursday night? Idaho State Lab mixed up monkeypox tests. Here's how it happened. And this was August 2022. The Idaho State Lab mixed up monkeypox tests and had everybody that did have monkeypox thinking they had it, and had the people that had it thinking they didn't have it. Okay, this is Idaho State Forensic Lab. Check this out right here. Two samples arrived last Thursday at Idaho Bureau of Laboratories. Healthcare providers in two different parts of the state had swabbed their patients to test suspect for monkeypox infection. The lab processed the monkeypox test and sent out results. 4 days later, the state lab got a query from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention here in Atlanta. The CDC had received the samples from the same patients to confirm the state lab's results, but those samples and test results didn't match. It turned out that Idaho State Lab had inadvertently swapped the two patient samples. It wasn't just a paperwork error, though. It caused one person who didn't have monkeypox to get a positive result, and more concerning for public health, one person who did have monkeypox to get a negative result. The Idaho Department of Health and Welfare announced the lab's error and its subsequent investigation into the error in a news release Tuesday. This was August. This was 3 months before the killings. Idaho State Lab, not knowing what they're doing. I'm not making this up. I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up. All right, I got one more thing I want to put out here, and this is concerning the PCA. This is concerning the PCA. Now, let me give you a head start. I'm put it in the chat. The PCA says that Brian Kohlberger has been around the victim's home 12 times, all right, and that he returned to the scene at between 9:12 and 9:21, and then went back home. Remember that? All right. Okay, I put that in there. Now, check this out. Hold on, let me get it. Let me grab it. Okay, now check this out. These are the two only ways for Brian Kohlberger to get from Pullman to Moscow. Okay, he can take this road 270, or he can take this one above it. One takes 10 minutes with general traffic. The other one takes 20 minutes. And the red arrow shows that Steve, really, in the middle of my speech, really, in the middle of my speech. Okay, that's all right. Now, these are the only two routes that Brian Kohlberger would take to Moscow. And hi, Mr. Mojo Rising. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you. That's right, Robin. One maiden, but they had his prints already at WSU since the beginning of the semester. And KP said, remember how it was rumored his parents kind of babied him? Maybe that's why he chose WSU, because his neighbor could hook up an internship with the cops. Yes, that's something we can investigate for our next talk too. All right, so look at the maps. The red arrow shows that regardless of which way Koberger enters Moscow, he ends up at Perimeter Road. That's where that red arrow is showing. Does everybody agree with me so far that regardless of which way he comes from Steptoe Apartments, he will end up at that same point where the arrow is pointing, which is Perimeter Road? Does everybody agree so far? RV rolling. All right. Hi, RV. Okay. I'm thinking. Hi, Joanne. Thank you. Hi, Clavy. Neighbor wasn't neighbor until after the crime. Okay. All right. Well, listen. Does everybody agree or not about the map? I'm going to move forward now. I want to make sure you stay with me. Thank you, Annie. All right. So, 19 to 20 minutes. Now look at this. Now, regardless of which way he comes, he's going to end up at Perimeter Drive, right there, up there at the top where that white circle is. And then 1102 King Road is 1.3 miles from Perimeter Drive. So my point is, no matter, every time Brian Koberger comes to Moscow, no matter where he's going to ping off the same tower as the victims. Because every time he arrives at Moscow, he arrives at Perimeter Drive. He arrives 1.3 miles from the house. So every time he comes to Moscow, he's going to ping off the same tower as the one that pings off King Road. Every time. It's nothing special. Every time he goes to Moscow, he's gonna ping off that tower, his phone. If he uses it, or somebody texts him, or he's got the GPS on, every time. So it's not like when he gets off 270 or whatever, and he's at Perimeter Drive, he's stalking anybody. He has to come that way to get into Moscow. All right, now let's look at the PCA. This is the last lie I'm going to uncover, and then we're going to call it quits. All right, and we'll see what you think and keep it moving. All right, this is my last point. This is page 15 of the affidavit. Right, I agree, Annie. He's pinging off the same tower and apparently getting to Moscow by teleporting based on LE routes or routes. It's true. It's true. I'm saying maybe he astro projected from somewhere and came to the house, did what he had to do. You know, some of these Satanists say that they can astro project to other places and kill people. I don't really know too much about that. I really don't want to know. But anyway, here is, he could have gone anywhere, Audrey. Thank you, Audrey Cates. He could have gone anywhere in Moscow. He had to pass by that house to even get into Moscow. So to say that he was around the house stalking the victims 12 times, they better have him on his car and his phone on camera on that street, because he had to come within 1.3 miles of the house every time he came to Moscow. Now, look at the PCA. It says, further review indicated that the 845 phone utilized cellular resources on the 13th, consistent with Koberger's approximately 9 a.m. at his residence. Traveling to Moscow. Specifically, The phone utilized cellular resources that would provide coverage to the King Road residents between 9:12 and 9:21. Okay, that's 9 minutes. They say he was at his house at 9 o'clock. He was at his house at 9 o'clock. And then he was pinging at 9:12 to 9:21. And then he went back home. Now look. If he left his house at 9 a.m. and it takes him 19 to 20 minutes, he couldn't have got there until 9:20. He couldn't have got there till 9:20. So it's not true. Let me just say something. I appreciate everything you guys have given, to help support the channel and give tips and everything. We have come to a place now we have to accept some of this stuff as lies. If we're going to party UV5, Nana, Anna, welcome. Listen, we have to get to the place where we admit that some of this stuff is lies. Okay? Some of it is lies. It's not to say Kohlberger is innocent. It's to say that it didn't happen that way. Okay? Those kids, I believe, were deceased by 4 o'clock. I believe the killers were in the house by 3:30, and they were out, or they were anything past 4 o'clock was cleanup. That's what I believe. And I don't believe Dylan or Bethany were in the house listening to 4 people be murdered, and all they did was close their door and lock it. And they stayed in there until 11 o'clock with the door open at 28 degrees outside, with blood, the smell of blood permeating through the house. I just don't believe it. And then turned around the next week and went and got tattoos, smiling on social media. I don't believe it. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. Now, this is the last. I know the last one was supposed to be last. I'm just really getting into investigating and proving that the connection between the house purchase and stuff. I found some stuff. I want to wait for a little while. I wanna just thank AZ. She referred your channel. Thank you, Justice A to Z. Thank you. I love your channel. I visit over there when I can. But thank you very much for the shout out, and thank you for letting me know. Party UV5, thank you for letting me know. I do visit over there. All right. Annie Potts said Kaylee and Maddie never used the phones again after 2:52. That's likely when they were killed. I agree. Anytime after 3 o'clock. Anytime after 3 o'clock. Okay, on this screen, this is the view from the camera that's supposed to have caught the white Elantra doing all this stuff, or the white car. Because the owner of the camera, he said he saw what was white or light colored car. He couldn't even confirm that the car was white. It's in black and white online. This is the guy that owned the apartments. This is his view of King Road back there. And his camera, that's the field in between, in the middle, and then way back there, that's King Road. Way up there at the top, in the middle of the picture, up there at the top, that's King Road. That's the view that they had, that I showed you in my video showing white Elantra. Guess who? This is the view they had. They could see the 3-point turn. Now remember, this was at night. So the camera view was far away, but they could see a 3-point turn at King Road and Queen Road, because we sitting here looking at it. Up there at the top, in the middle, above the tree, that's King Road and Queen Road right there. You can see it. But you can see Queen, you can't see 1122 King Road. You can't even see travel on Queen Road from this angle. So they had to get shots of people coming and going from the house from another angle because you can't see it from here. Kaylee used drug money for her car. You know, we've heard a lot of speculation about that. People were saying, how is she getting money to go to Europe? How is she have money for the Range Rover? I've heard a lot of speculation. Some people said it was OnlyFans money. I heard it was OnlyFans money. Then I heard it was drug money. I've heard so many different things about that. But I also heard that the family put up a GoFundMe to help finish paying for the truck. So she didn't pay cash for it. You know, she put a down payment on it. And they needed help, you know, getting the payments, the rest of the payments. All right, I'm taking questions for 5 minutes and then I'm going to close it up. Does anybody have questions? Hi to Gardis, Shams, Don't Care, Lynn Ann, Nikki Watson. Yes, yes, Drugs and Kaylee and Maddie were bonus. Why does Dylan always make her mouth like that in every picture? OnlyFans. I'm trying to look into that hit and run next to Brian's apartment that night. I think everything matters, so I just can't overlook anything. I agree. I believe that deserves more investigation. I certainly do agree. I certainly do agree. All right, so I'm going to put my reminder up here for you all to, hold on. Kay Hawkins said it was stated by law enforcement that Xana was most likely on her phone and on TikTok. Most likely. Either she wasn't or she was. Exactly. And she wasn't. She wasn't even alive at 412. She wasn't alive at 412. And if it takes me until the trial, I'm gonna prove it from a shadow of a doubt. Now listen, I'm gonna put my like, share, and subscribe to donations for subscriptions, equipment, you know, time. It buys time. It helps with a lot of different things. Okay, it's a free channel. It's free country. You know, I'm not extorting or anything. I'm just saying anybody that would like to donate to support the channel, you can get the link and the PayPal link or the what is it? Oh, the Cash App from my community tab. I'm not gonna bother to put it up here. Okay, I'm just refer you to my community tab. If you would like to donate a couple of dollars, that would be fine. Everything is appreciated. Everything. And so we discussed a lot here, and I want to video based on what you guys have said in this live. That much. Okay, so I guess now I'm begging for likes because I guess on my community page and we can talk about it between videos. You don't have to wait until I post something. Thank you, Hard Truth, Cajun Chick, Night All. Thanks for chat, RB. Keep it rolling. And D and M were friends of the killers, so they went free. Exactly. Robin Latham. Exactly. Tina, like a college kid, saved that kind of money. LOL. They party all the time. Exactly, Nana Anna. Thank you for all you do. Justice for everyone and truth. Save me from myself. Bye, everyone. Love you guys so much. Much love, Hard Truth. Much love to you, Robin. Is anyone else's overlapping talking and music? Yeah, it probably was. Yeah. Yes, can't hear what she's saying. All right, well, I'll stop putting that up there. Okay? And so make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Post new information on the community page where you can also find the information for donations. I'm not going to put that in the lives. I'll always have something in the community page for you, but this is it. Now, thank you, beautiful disaster, RG Cates, Cajun Chick, Justice A to Z. I put the links to your last two drops in the descriptions of my last couple of videos. Great work. Thank you, Justice A to Z. I'll see you on your channel soon. Okay, let me know when is your next live, and I'll be sure to be there. Much love to you, and good night.